Hi guys, it's Davin here at Brewbitz.com. We've got a fantastic new beer kit come in. This is a German pale ale, actually made in Germany. We've not had it in for very long as I'm doing this right now, so well, to be honest with you, it came in today. So I've not actually seen what's in the box. We've been sent some samples and I can tell you they're absolutely cracking, really, really good. So what we're going to do is we're going to brew this up. Now this pale ale is typical of German pale ales. It's really strong, it's got a really good head to it, good amount of bitterness but not too much, if you know what I mean. So why don't we have a look and actually show you what's inside this box, because I've been told it's going to be slightly different to most beer kits that we've ever had before. So come on in, James, let's have a look in here. Oh, because you're going to find out with me exactly what we've got. So a nice lot of paper. Oh, right, we've got some bits and bobs there. So what we've got, this is our bottle of malt extract, and you can see here what it's got in it. And in this little pack we've got a few other bits and bobs. So let's see what we've got. Well, we've got our instructions, and you'll be glad to hear they're in English. Oh, and although these look like sample bottles, they are indeed. They are little bottles of hop extract, all numbered. And then we've also got 2 sachets of beer yeast. So there's going to be a few other bits and bobs we're going to need to be able to brew this up. So I'm going to get all that together now, and we'll show you then what we're going to need to get going with this beer kit. So what are we going to need to actually get this beer kit brewing? Well, the first and most important thing we're going to need is some sterilizer. Here I'm using sodium metabisulfate, but there are other sterilizers you can use. So we're going to need a bucket that's been sterilized so that we can put all our ingredients into. We're going to need a spoon so that we can stir everything around. We're going to need a hydrometer. I'm here going to be using my trial jar as well, and that's going to allow me to check the specific gravities before and at the end. That'll tell me that the beer's finished fermenting, and it's also going to help me work out exactly what the alcohol content of it is. We're going to need a thermometer, because with these beer kits we need to keep them in pretty much an exact temperature. We're going to need a siphon, so when we come to do a bit of siphoning from one container to the next, we're going to need a good jug so that we can measure everything with. And then once we've brewed it all, we're going to need to put it into something, and we can either put it into bottles or we can put it into barrels. Okay, first thing though we need to do before we get brewing is we need to take our malt extract, and here I've poured off a bowl full of hot tap water. And the second thing I need to do is now take my kettle, and I need to put the kettle on. Now whilst I'm waiting for that to boil up, I'm going to go get myself a drink to drink up whilst I'm carrying on brewing. See you in a moment. Perfect. Kettle's finished boiling, and this, I don't know if you can see, James, can you come in and have a look? It's starting to come quite gloopy inside. There we go. So, right, back to me, because we're going to try and take, oh goodness. Okay. That top was quite tight. Alright, we take the ring off. This is the big tip I can give you. It comes with a little ring like that. Take that ring off so it doesn't drop into your bucket. I can tell you in the past I've fished that little ring out of this gloop. Oh, look at this. Lovely, 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 lovely. Oh, let's give it a little squeeze, that might help. There we go. Hee hee. Come on, let the air back in. This is, oh, I'm enjoying myself with this, I can tell you. Oh, this is a lovely smell of Maltesers. Lovely smell of Ovaltine. Also, a cracking smell of Horlicks. All mixed together. Bit of a smell of shredded wheat. And, right, so I think that's the lot that we're going to easily get out of there. So what we're going to do, come on. Stop it. There we go. Right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to take 2 litres of very hot tap water, or if you prefer, you can use 2 litres of off the boil water from your kettle. Oh, this is my jug, got a bad jug. So I'm going to do 1 litre in there like that, and what I'm going to do is put the top back on. We're going to give it a good shaking, because there's still lots of absolutely cracking malt extract in here we want to try and get out. So we'll give it a good old shake. Pour that in. You see I've still got some left in here as well. So again, I'm going to use another litre off the boil. Just be careful when you do this, of course it's extremely hot water. In it goes. Let's give this a whoop. Gentle swish around. Just trying to get all of that malt extract out. Okay, black. Oh. Lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of it, so I'm just trying to get it all out. Should be left with nothing but lovely clear. Lovely, and that's what you want to be left with. No malt extract in your bucket. Okay, I now need to add another 2 litres of boiling water to this. I might just have another litre left in my kettle. Yes, I do. And I need 1 more litre, so I just need to pop my kettle back onto the boil. Lovely, so that's my other litre of boiling water. And I'm now going to give this a good stir. And you look. You've got to stir all of that water in and gradually mix all of this gloop in so it's no longer gloopy and runny like that, okay? It's going to take a couple of minutes to do that and make sure it's all worked in. You've got none of the gloop left in the bottom, all right? Just be careful, because of course there's boiling water in there. You don't want to hurt yourself. So now when you pull your spoon out, once it's all been totally dissolved, you should have no more of that gloop on the bottom of your spoon. Brilliant. Okay, back up to me, gents, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my bucket up to here, because what we now need to do is we need to top our bucket here up to the 5 gallon mark or the 23 litre mark with cold water. Now, here our water is not too chlorine, it's a good source. We've got a local source not too far away for our tap water, and our tap water is quite good. However, if you've got tap water which has got lots of chlorine in, what you may want to do is you may want to pull off a bucket full of water the night before you're going to be making this and leave it for 24 hours, and that will allow any chlorine or any other chemicals within the water to dissipate and help your beer and help the flavour of your beer. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm very lucky, I've got one of these taps that you can pull out. I'm now going to top it up to the 5 gallon mark, the 23 litre mark with cold tap water. Okay, come on in here a second, James, because what I want you to see is I'm trying to run the water down the side of the bucket. Beers have a very good tendency to want to froth up. And if I just did this, by the time I got to the 5 gallon mark, back to me, James, by the time I got to the 5 gallon mark, I would have a head of froth up here. And it'd be absolutely impossible for me to get my liquid up to the 5 gallon mark. So make sure when you pour it in, to pour it in gently. And if you're using a tap like mine, try and pour it down the side. If you're using a jug, just gently pour it in. So, I think I'm going to have another sip. Come on in, James, and have a look, because as you can see, by putting the water down the side or pouring it nice and gently, you get a little bit of froth, but not too much. Now, back to me, James, because what we need to do is all of that thick, gloopy syrup is still down at the bottom at the moment, so we need to give it a good mix and make sure all the cold water we've just put in mixes with all the really thick, syrupy hot water we've got at the bottom. Okay, shouldn't take too long. Get a good mix going, and you're not trying to put air into it. What you're just trying to do is mix it. Okay, so now then, here comes our little bottles. This is our hop extract, and oof, yay! Oh. It's like getting into a medicine bottle, this is. Hey! That's hops. That's one. Two. Oh, it's got a little top bit from the inside again. Three. Oh, I keep pushing down. Yay, oops. And the last one, 4. And we need to give that hop extract a good stir in to make sure it's all the way through our beer. Oh wow, I've suddenly got a very different smell off this beer, really different smell. You can really smell lots of citrus notes coming from this. It's, oh, that's really changed this beer, really changed it. Okay. So just give it a good stir and make sure it's all stirred in. I've taken a sample in my trial jar so that I can take the specific gravity with my hydrometer, and it's coming out at 1.050. Now this is going to help me a little bit later on once the beer is finished fermenting, so that I can work out exactly the amount of alcohol in the beer. Now, I've sterilised my trial jar and my hydrometer, so don't want to waste any of that lovely liquor, so that's gone back in my bucket. Right, so the next thing we're going to need to do is add our yeast. Now, where did I put my yeast, James? Ah, yes, here we go. So, we've got our 2 sachets of yeast. Now what we're going to do is open them up, and I'm going to not try and sprinkle them into the foam. I'm going to try and sprinkle it into an area where I've cleared the foam away, okay? And this is going to help the yeast to hydrate and get going in the beer, in the wort, as fast as possible. So that goes in, and what we're going to do is we're actually going to give this a little gentle stir in to make sure all the yeast is in contact with our beer. Lovely. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my sterilised lid for the bucket, and I'm going to pop it on the top, and I'm going to press down on just 2 sides, like that, and that's all. That's going to allow a gap now for any carbon dioxide to escape from the bucket. And I've got a feeling about this. I've got a feeling this could well be a frothy beer. So I'm going to put this into my warm cupboard at a temperature between 18 and 20 degrees. Now I know my warm cupboard is pretty much smack on 20 degrees, but this is where your thermometer comes in. So what I suggest you do is when you put it in your warm cupboard, you put the thermometer on top like that, let it rest, and keep an eye on it on a regular basis to make sure it's at a constant temperature of 20 degrees. If once you put it in you find it's a little bit too hot, then move it down. If you find it's a little bit too cold in your warm cupboard, move it up. Same goes as if you're using heat belts or heat trays, just get it to a right temperature of 18 to 20 degrees. This should brew out in about 5 to 7 days, and in about 5 to 7 days when you see no more bubbles coming up through, I'm going to take a reading with my hydrometer, and as long as it stays exactly the same for 3 days consecutively, then I know it's finished fermenting and we're ready to move on to the next steps. If you find it hasn't finished fermenting, you're still seeing a few bubbles coming up through after 7 days, leave it for a few days longer. It's not going to hurt, it's not going to harm. You may find that you may see no more bubbles come up in about 3 or 4 days. That's fine. Leave it for about 7 days, test it for those 3 consecutive days, and if it stays the same with your hydrometer, perfect. So, just to recap, into our warm cupboard, 18 to 20 degrees for about 7 days. Now as I said, I've got a feeling on this one that it's going to be quite a frothy head. So I'm going to put the tray underneath it, so just in case any froth erupts out and runs down the side, I'm not going to get my warm cupboard frothy and beery. So, into my warm cupboard it goes. It's been 10 days since I put my bucket of the Munich Pale Ale into my warm cupboard. And in about 7 days I took a specific gravity reading with my hydrometer, and I took a note of it, and then for the next 3 days I've also been keeping a note of it. So it's coming out constantly over the last 3 days as 1.012. And so, because it's been constant, we know that fermentation is complete, so we're ready to move on. So come on in and have a look at this, James, because you'll see that from the top we've got a little bit of bubbles on the top from where the yeast is. But what we need to do now is we need to take it from this bucket, because down at the bottom of the bucket here we've got a lot of sediment, and it's going to make life a lot easier when we come to barrel and bottle it to take it off the sediment at this stage. So here I'm going to use my simple siphon, and I've got on the end here a sediment trap, and all I'm going to do is just pop it in the top. Come on in, James, come back and have a quick look, because I'm not popping it in very far, and what I'm going to do is as the beer gradually drops down the barrel, back to me, James. As the beer gradually drops down the barrel, I'm going to follow it down with the sediment trap. Anyway, so we give a good suck. And we get it to flow. Now, down in here, James, you'll notice I've got a tap. This is going to help me when I come to bottle my beer a bit later. Make sure if you're doing it with a bucket with a tap, it's switched off. I've learned that lesson before. Anyway, this takes a little bit of time to go down through, and I don't seem to have picked myself up a drink. So, James, can you go get me a drink whilst I'm waiting for this to all siphon through? It took a little bit of time to siphon off, as you would expect, the 5 gallons into my second bucket down here, but I thought I'd also take a quick little taster. Nice gentle amount of bitters, still got a bit of way to go, but you can tell there's some interesting potential here. Oh yeah, I'm getting the kick of the bitters on the side of the tongues now, so that's nice. Very malty, a little bit salted caramel, little bit of digestive biscuit, so a bit like something like millionaire shortbread coming through. Anyway, in here, this is all the yucky stuff we've got left over. Quite a nice load of yeast sediment, so I'll get rid of that. And so now, what we're going to do with this is I need to add some priming sugar. Now the way I like to add my priming sugar, instead of adding it, say a teaspoon to each bottle, I like to add it all in one go, stir it all in, and that means I know every single bottle's got exactly the same amount of sugar in. So here, I've got about 4 ounces of sugar, and I'm just going to give it a good stir in. Simple and easy as that. Whilst I'm doing that, I'm going to finish this. Now all the sugar's dissolved, it's time to bottle. And what I'm using here is I'm using some brown glass swing top bottles to give a bit more of that German feel. And if any of you have ever bottled beer before using a siphon, you know how difficult it is because beer naturally wants to cause a head, and you'll get so far up and you'll find there'll be a massive load of froth at the top of the glass, which is an absolute pain. So there's a lovely little gadget, which is this, which is called a little bottler. And what we've got is we've got a special tap here, and that fits onto the bottom of our special tap, and at the bottom here we've got a little valve. So come back to me, James, because we're going to turn on the tap. What will happen is absolutely nothing. Now my little table down here, I'm going to change into my little seat, and all we're going to do, you might not be able to see this very clearly, is I'm going to push the bottle up onto the valve at the bottom, and now the beer starts filling from the bottom up, and we don't get any froth on the top. So what we're going to do is we're going to take it up right to the top of the beer bottle, nice and gently doing it. Ooh, a little bit more, wait, and we pull it out. The valve causes it to stop, and when we pull it out, it gives you the exact amount of air gap in the top to help with the beer conditioning. There you go, 1 bottle beer. I'm going to get on and do the rest now. Now, some of my friends find this style of beer a little bit strong. It's going to be about 6%. So sometimes I tend to keep some of my little stubbies saved up, and I pop it in a little stubby like so. And all we need to do is take a cap with a capper, pop it on. There you go. Bottle of beer for a wuss. Although I've bottled some of the Munich Pale Ale, I also want to put some of it into a pressure barrel, and here I'm using a king keg. Now, although I've got the top here, the tap, I mean, I could position it and just open the tap and let it flow. Don't really want to do that because that's going to introduce air, and if you introduce air and froth, etc., then you can introduce bugs and bacteria into your beer, and potentially you can cause it to go to vinegar. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our siphon. Now this time we don't need the sediment trap on the end. So all I'm going to do is literally pop it in the top, hold it in place by putting the handle down, give a good suck. Oh, get it nice down in get it nice down deep in there so you don't get any churning up, and just let it flow. Simple and easy as that. Now we finished barreling and bottling. The barrels and bottles, whichever way you've decided to do it, are going to go back into the warm cupboard so that it stays at about 20 degrees. And ideally, I'd like to leave it in there for at least 48 hours. If you leave it for a few days longer, so be it. But please just try and leave it for about 48 hours. That will allow the rest of the sugars that are now we've added to the beer to yeast to eat those sugars up and to form carbon dioxide. And in the barrel, that helps create a level of carbon dioxide at the top of the barrel here, and that helps prevent any bugs, bacteria or anything like that getting into the beer. On our top tap, it also helps get the beer out because it needs some pressure. Now when it comes to the bottles, of course, once it's bottled up like this, and you need to use pressure bottles if you're going to use bottles, ones that have had or are suitable for holding carbonated drinks, because the carbon dioxide in here is now going to basically make its way into it, so eventually in about a month's time when you pop this open, you're going to get a good fizz and a good head off the beer. So back into your warm cupboard, 20 degrees for ideally 48 hours. Leave it in there if you want to for a few more days, and then once it's had that, we're going to take it out, we're going to put it somewhere cool, and we're going to leave it in the barrel for about a month to condition. Same goes for the bottles, and in a month's time pop one open, pour a pint off, and you'll find you'll have a fantastic pint of beer. And if it's anything like the samples we were given by the Brewbarrel, absolutely cracking bits of kit, absolutely brilliant stuff, and you'll really enjoy it.